This paid message is from the 2025 Moms, Dads, and Grads Gift Guide from Christianity Today's Creative Studio. Whether you're celebrating your mother, father, graduate, or want to give a gift just because, these books are for you. Visit momsdadsgrads.com to browse our books.
We tend to want to take the situation into our own hands and exact vengeance. We tend, you and I, to move purely at the human level and maybe begin even legal proceedings. We find it so hard to submit to the danger of letting God be God in this moment of trial and scorn.
Welcome to the God-Centered Life with Josh Moody, making our way through the Psalms of Ascent. The series is called My Journey. Today, the study called Injustice, and we'll look at Psalm 123. Josh Moody is senior pastor of College Church in Wheaton, Illinois. My name is Todd Bastide. Thanks for joining us for the study today. Josh, sounds like we're going to be invited to the easy task of putting more weight into the promises of God regarding a coming judgment.
Yeah. It's hard to think that way, isn't it? But that's the way we're instructed so often in the Bible, is to let God be God and let Him be the judge. So we need to forgive each other, but lead judgment to God. And it is a hard task, but this psalm will be helping us with that.
All right, let's jump in. Psalm 123 is our focus. Here's Josh.
Psalm 123. There was a policeman in a small town who noticed the young man driving very fast through his small town. And he stopped, he pulled him over and was going to yank him to jail for his breaking of the law. The young man tried to protest, but the policeman cut him off short and just yanked him off to jail. Later in the day, the policeman came to the man in jail and said, "Don't worry, it won't be too bad. The chief will be in a good mood. He's out now, but when he comes back, he'll be in a good mood because he's been at his daughter's wedding." The young man said, "Don't count on it. I'm the groom." Injustice. Teacher tried to get his children in the class to come up with a good example of injustice. One of the children raised his hand and said, "Well, here's my example. When my dad makes mistakes in the homework, the teacher blames me." Psalm 123, an example of injustice. I lift up my eyes to you whose throne is in heaven. As the eyes of slaves look to the hand of their master, as the eyes of a maid look to the hand of her mistress, so our eyes look to the Lord our God, till he has shown us mercy. Have mercy upon us, O Lord, have mercy upon us, for we have had more than enough of contempt. Our soul has had more than enough of the scorn of those who are at ease, of the contempt of the proud. I will evermore be someone who is marked by one experience of injustice that I received. I did not grow up in the ghetto, and I've never experienced the cold horror of racism. I am a white Westerner with a privileged background and a privileged education. I did not have to fight my way up from the ground, earn my living sieving through garbage as some do, grateful for the job. I have not begged as a blinded untouchable for a living. I have not been homeless on the streets for years, hunted for shelter under a bridge. I have known people who have been in these situations from time to time, and have done my bit from time to time to alleviate what suffering I could. As such, I have felt myself to be a compassionate person, not one likely to pass by on the other side, but to reach out a hand to those who have been the victim of scorn or contempt from those who are at ease. My brush with injustice was far more minor than what we read about and watch and what millions experience today. It is so minor that I dare not mention it in the same breath as the tortured or the oppressed. When we look at Egypt or Tunisia or Libya today, we hear stories of people who have been the victim of injustices in ways which few of us in this room can imagine, and fewer still have even come close to suffering. Our petty injustices must not be put at the same level as someone who, by virtue of their birth in a shanty town on the outskirts of some megapolis in the majority world, has only the one chance in a million of getting out, the sort of fantasy escape route that the movie Slumdog Millionaire fantasized. You see, it's one thing to look at a picture of a starving boy or meet a child whose parents have died of AIDS, or to hear the story of someone who was tortured during the civil rights movement. It is another thing to believe that it could have been you, and to put yourself in that person's shoes and to realize that you and he are made of the same dust and by the same Creator. See, that's what my one little brush with injustice has done for me. It has allowed me to feel the sheer anger of being wrongly accused, of being victimized, of having those who are at ease oppress and dominate, sometimes using moral words to encourage their own oppression. Now, this psalm does not deal with all the issues related to justice, and nor can we. Those issues are very great and intellectually complicated and practically strewn with pitfalls on that path to make sure that helping does not end up hurting. There is a difference between relief and development, and relief should not be given to those who need development, nor vice versa. This psalm does not do more than touch on that sort of discussion. Nor is it the fullest representative of the theme of justice in the Bible. I want you to notice several things about it. First of all, I want you to notice that radical submission to God is not at the opposite end of the spectrum to a desire to be free from oppression. The psalmist is submitting to God like a servant. He is groveling, we might say. He is looking to the master, she is looking to her mistress, like an ancient chattel looking to the hand, waiting for the merest gesture to obey immediately. See, our contemporary world tends to say, if you want to be free from repression, it starts with freeing yourself from submission to God. This psalm says the reverse. The only way to be free from repression is to have a higher set of values. Perhaps that is the difference between the revolution that ends with the butchery of the guillotine and one that leads to the beauty of the Constitution. I think of Martin Luther King's interview when he was being criticized for his opposition to the Vietnam War. He was asked on television whether he regretted that his stance may have alienated Johnson, the president at the time. His reply was that loyalty should not be associated always with agreement, and that the principles of right and wrong in his own conscience were the values to which he must hold true. You see, unless we have a set of firm principles, we will not be able to stand up to naked power. And such principles are only secure when they are rooted in the person of God. You see, the psalmist is not saying that he's groveling before a hard task master. He's saying that because he is submitting to God in a radical way, he is able now to stick to his principles. Think of your situation at work. Here it is, there's a chance to make a fast buck or two. Will you cave in? If you have a radical submission to God and His Word, you will not. You have a higher loyalty that is firm and fixed.
More from Psalm 123 in just a moment. But first, a quick reminder that you're listening to The God-Centered Life with Josh Moody. He's senior pastor of College Church, which is located about 30 miles west of Chicago in the community of Wheaton, Illinois. If you'd like to learn more, simply go by godcenteredlife.org. Back into our Psalm 123 study for the time being, though. Here's Josh.
Second, I want you to notice that what the psalmist asks for is not justice, but mercy. He certainly could have asked for justice. He has suffered contempt. He has had more than enough of scorn. And this scorn comes from those who, adding insult to injury, are at ease. That is, they have no idea of the situation which he has found himself in personally. And so, like an able-bodied person scorning a disabled person. That is, they're doing something not just wrong, but grossly wrong. The contempt comes from those who are proud. They not only think too little of the psalmist, they think too much of themselves. Now, those seem to be the two principles that you find in this prayer. And together, it seems to me, they are quite revolutionary. You have a revolutionary submission. The context, you see, to this psalm is quite possibly that of Ezra and Nehemiah and the rebuilding of the walls after the return from exile. Whether this psalm was written then or written earlier and used then, it's quite possible, not certain, but possible, that this psalm was employed in the context of that ridicule that Nehemiah and the people received at their attempted rebuilding of the wall. Their enemies were saying that the wall was going to fall down. It was pathetic. It was terrible construction. They had no chance whatsoever. They were naive simpletons to think they could rebuild that wall. And they were treating them with contempt. And in such contexts, it would have been very easy for Nehemiah to lash back and attack, at least with words. Instead, he submits himself to God, we find in the story. God is in charge. But this is not just the doctrine of God's sovereignty, for which we are, many of us, familiar. It is a personal decision to entrust the matter into the hands of the Master, to look at his hand and let him be God in this situation. How much is that needed in so many situations when we feel repressed or wrongly treated? We tend to want to take the situation into our own hands and exact vengeance. We tend, you and I, to move purely at the human level and maybe begin even legal proceedings. We find it so hard to submit to the danger of letting God be God in this moment of trial and scorn. Your issue of repression could go back many, many years to your own childhood, a slight from your parents, an overlook from what was rightly yours, a brother or sister who treated you badly. It could be more recent, an injustice you perceive in some personal relationship. Well, deal with it, the psalmist is modeling for us, by lifting your eyes to heaven, not by fixing your eye on the injustice at the human level. Practice a radical submission to God and his ways. As Charles Spurgeon puts it, we need not speak in prayer. A glance of the eye will do it all. And so in this looking up to God, we meet there not the eyes of another terrible dictator, but the God of justice and mercy, compassion and grace, who looks tenderly on his people. Perhaps there is some job that you feel should have been yours, some opportunity that you have been denied. Look to God about it. Sometimes, indeed, God's reply can be delayed. Martin Luther describes the right attitude to such delay of our cry for mercy like this: For in that he, that is God, defers his help, he does it not because he will not hear us, but to exercise and stir up our faith, and to teach us that the ways whereby he can and does deliver us are so manifold and miraculous that we are never able to conceive them. Therefore, let us think that the thing which we ask is not denied, but deferred, and assure ourselves that we are not neglected because of this delay. Well, perhaps all this seems rather small by comparison with the massive issues of justice, of contempt and scorn and repression in our world today, of Libya and Egypt and Tunisia, of the millions starving. But no prayer is small because prayer is directed to the God of all. My personal relationship with Jesus at a time of repression is the opportunity then to be changed by him and so to become what Gandhi called the change that you wish to see in the world. I like the African proverb which says that if you think you are too small to make a difference, try spending the night in a closed room with a mosquito. This is, if you like, a mosquito prayer. It's buzzing around the Psalms, making its way to God, crying out over and over again, "Mercy, Lord. Would you have mercy, Lord?" And in so doing, the psalmist, perhaps in that context of Nehemiah, is stopped from trying to take revenge and so appear petty and pathetic and exposed as far less powerful than his adversaries, but instead goes to God, whose solution is far more powerful than any human pride. And so it is a prayer we can pray for ourselves in our own experiences of injustice. It's also a prayer we can pray for other people. For those who are suffering this kind of contempt at the hands of oppressors, that God would have mercy. And there are many great temptations that come with being oppressed. We can make justice at a human level everything. We can take the gospel and turn it into a social action movement. We can, as T.S. Eliot said, end up doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, which he called the last and greatest temptation. In the end, speculations about justice and our attempts to achieve it are always fraught with difficulties, for we are bargaining between two sinners caught in a mesh of depravity, and what we need is justice on a God level and therefore mercy from the hands of the living Lord. Now, it is no small thing that Christians learn to plead for mercy and practice it as well, to embody the change they wish to see in the world. One young Jewish man 150 years ago grew up in Germany, and the life of the family centered on the synagogue. The family moved to another part of Germany, and one evening the father came home and announced that they were no longer attending the synagogue, but would start going to the Lutheran church. The young man was startled and asked why, and his father said it was for business contacts, more financially profitable to attend the Lutheran church. The young man became disillusioned and bitter. He later studied in London at the reading room of the British Museum and wrote that religion is the opiate of the people. Karl Marx was his name. One bit of cynicism and hypocrisy can make a world of difference. And one Christian on their knees before God with radical submission and a plea for mercy, changed by that prayer, can change the world. Another man, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, in a prison camp in Siberia, realized that the line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart. Perhaps you remember the revolution that was not in Tiananmen Square in China. If you do, I imagine the image that is burnt on your retina is that of one young man standing before a tank, shifting as it shifted, immovable in his resolution. The kind of courage that is required to proclaim the mercy of the gospel of Jesus Christ as the solution to the problems of our world, without the naivety that ignores the repressive structural evils, nor the hypocrisy that pretends that Christianity must not be lived as well as taught. That we who plead for mercy must have mercy, we who have been forgiven must forgive. That sort of thoroughbred gospel, undiluted, clear, but fruitful and brave. It's the result of the heartfelt prayer of one broken, pious Israelite on his knees before his master God, asking for mercy. Mercy for his captors, mercy for his oppressors, mercy for himself, that he not give in to the sweet deceit of bitterness. Mercy eternally, that the suffering we wish to alleviate is not only in this world, but even more the eternal suffering in the world to come. If it is wrong to give people the gospel without giving them bread, it is also wrong to give people bread and send them on their way with a full stomach to damnation, when we could have alleviated that suffering through the proclamation of the gospel. So we have rights inhered to us by virtue of being made in the image of God, and we have responsibilities. When the movie Titanic was being made, they showed people, of course, in that movie scrambling and fighting to get into the life rafts, asserting themselves. What they did not show, for no one would have believed it today, was the historical reality agreed upon by all the accounts, that the men let the women go first with the children, and many of them simply stood and watched and gave themselves to drown, that others may be saved. You see, as we think of justice, we need to go further and think of mercy. Ask for it, and then give it to those around us to be a vehicle for their receiving gospel mercy too.
That's Josh Moody, and this is The God-Centered Life. Josh, the Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote jumped out. The line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart. Now, we've been talking recently about how we are all related to the fallenness around us until we're redeemed. We have the world within us. The gospel is the solution, but there's also a sense that we need to own our part in the injustice in this world, is there not?
For sure, yeah. Again, that Solzhenitsyn quote, the line goes down every single human heart. That means mine and yours. And so we are not immune from sin. We are not immune from being a part of injustice and wrong actions and thoughts. And we need to repent and put our trust in Jesus and follow him in the community of the church and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that's a lifelong journey, a journey of repentance and faith. That's what it means to be a Christian, in fellowship with Jesus and in the community of the church.
A journey indeed, yes. Excellent. Thanks for that, Josh. Well, we'll continue that journey when we get together next time. Meantime, I wanted to let you know GodCenteredLife.org. This is where we're collecting resources. The beginning of this My Journey study, looking at the Psalms of Ascent, is there and available. If you're just joining us, you can backtrack a little bit and get caught up in the Psalms and make your way up to Psalm 123. Next, we'll start in the next Psalm and continue looking at that. GodCenteredLife.org is also how you can connect with us. You can send us a note. You can partner with us and help this ministry continue. We'd love to have you swing by GodCenteredLife.org. Next time we get together, it's safety in the storm.
This side of the Jordan, this side of heaven, there is no place of perpetual peace. But though that is the case, because the Lord is on our side, such danger need never be defeat.
We are escaping danger during our next visit to the book of Psalms. GodCenteredLife.org has all kinds of resources we're collecting on your behalf. And this is your invitation to join us when we next gather on God's Word here at the God-Centered Life with Josh Moody.